Good morning. It is 6:46 a.m. on Thursday, August 8th, 2019. I'm Christiana Ellis, and I just got up. This is 5 more minutes. August 8th, huh? Boy, this year's just ticking right along, it seems to me. I feel like now that I've gotten settled into my new routine, my current work project, like things are going well, but it definitely means that time, my subjective perception of time is just moving right along. As things go by, it's interesting just because I know that when I was kind of under the more stressful period of like the Korea project, for example, as I've talked about before and talked about every day when I was doing it, Korea was not a bad place to be, but just stressful being away from home. And so my perception of those times felt really long, whereas recently feels short. But so last night, in between putting out the podcast version of the most recent So Many Levels, I was playing a bit of The World Ends With You, which is a game that I originally played on the Nintendo DS, but has a Nintendo Switch version now. And so I've been playing that version, which I got as a birthday present? I think so. It was either birthday or Christmas or something, but from my good friend Lee. And I was definitely replaying it, which I recommend, even though the Nintendo Switch version doesn't have the really interesting and unique dual screen functionality that the original DS version does. There was just something really cool and interesting and unique about its presentation on the DS, but it's still a good game even without that. And without really getting into the minutia of what the game's about, because you could look that up if you're interested. It's a JRPG, but it's one of the things that's true about it, though, is that you can kind of go item collecting, and there's a lot of completionist type of activities that you can do. Do you go to every single store and buy every single item and level up your friendship with the salesperson up to 100%? And do you fight every kind of enemy? And do you get, fight every kind of enemy on every difficulty level? And, and it tracks all of these things. Get every single one of these little pins and have it leveled up to the max, and all of these sorts of things. And there are a lot of video games, of course, that encourage that sort of completionist behavior to one degree or another. And I've always been a little bit curious myself what it is about some games that inspires that instinct in me and leads me to actually pursue trying to 100% them. And then other games where I just really don't feel called to do that. For example, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is a game that I absolutely adored. Love it so much. But I actually didn't especially feel like making sure that I finished every single shrine and found every single Korok and saw every single thing and cooked every single dish. That didn't feel necessary to me in my play experience of that game. Maybe partly just because it was such a long game regardless. There was so much to it without feeling like you needed to check all those boxes. And also maybe just because the game doesn't emphasize that. You don't constantly have this little thing on your screen every time you look at it that says you've collected 40% of whatever. You just have to, it's a little bit more not ambiguous. Indifferent, I guess. The game's interface is more indifferent towards whether you do all of those things or not. Whereas other games really just push it in your face to let you know that you haven't gotten all of the things yet. But, some games do inspire that for me. Like, for example, the Infamous games and the Sly Cooper games and the recent Spider-Man game did make me feel like I wanted to do every single thing. But, for example, the Uncharted games have these little optional treasures you can get, and I generally don't feel like I need to get all of those. And then, of course, there are some games where what you actually like, I guess part of it is going to be like, what is the activity that you have to do to get all of those extra things might be one of the differences too. But like, for example, Uncharted, what you have to do is just kind of run around and like keep your eyes peeled. And then it even has a pretty easy mechanism where after you've beaten the game, you can just look back chapter by chapter of the game to see where you missed some, and you could go and just play those chapters again. But I don't care, because maybe it's just there's nothing to that. I don't know. I'm not sure. I guess I don't have a resolution for everybody, but I'm thinking about it. But nonetheless, The World Ends With You is definitely a game that inspires that, and yet when I originally played it, I didn't manage to go and finish everything. So will I this time? We shall see. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there, and I will talk to you all tomorrow for 5 more minutes.